Hello, I'm Jeff Crawford for Journo.com, and today we're going to be talking about education and video games. A common complaint among parents is that their child does nothing but sit around playing video games all day. Now, that's not necessarily healthy, but it's not as bad as it may appear on the surface. Many games these days are actually fairly sophisticated and require a lot of thought from the player to be put into playing them. Minecraft, for instance, has something called Redstone, which is its stand-in for electrical conductivity devices. With this and the switches and trap panels they have in game, players can set up a variety of traps to capture zombies or fend off creepers or what have you. One of the interesting things about that is it's sort of a virtual version of a programmable logic circuit. Anyone who's been to like a vocational school or studied industry at all knows that programmable logic circuits are the things that control robots and such in industry. So setting up that arrow trap or that TNT explosive or that zombie is actually something that has some real world applications, strange as that may seem. Other games, what other underlies programming in video games is math. Um, and, doing the statistics on your RPG hero to try to min-max the system actually involves a fair amount of mathematics, which can still help them in school. Other things involve programming, for one. If you want to make a game mod of your favorite game, you have to learn a little bit of programming to do it. And in an age where more and more of our lives are online or centered around the computer, that's a good thing, honestly. If I knew a lot more programming, I'd do much better in life. I'd get a lot more things done. Um, Other and soft subjects like social studies and history, video games actually play a fairly good role. My personal experience, I know a lot about history, and that stems from a video game. Age of Empires 2. Back in the day, you'd play different historical civilizations, and they'd have little descriptions in the game. Well, one of the things I always remember is my ninth grade history book in high school. If you flip through it, one of the quotes in the book was, "There's not much known about Greece in the medieval period." Well, that was absolute bunk. Greece was part of a very powerful political entity with a lot of history called the Byzantine Empire. Well, the history book just sort of ignored it because for a really long time, historians in the West just sort of ignored the Byzantines because they were Greek Orthodox instead of Catholic. Um, that's something that's people have been trying to correct, over the last 15, 20 years, but even as late as ninth grade, which is in the 90s for me, yeah, I'm old, the, textbooks were just sort of ignoring this, political entity that had 1,000-year history and a great effect on, the history of the world. I would have never found out about it except for this video game. In the modern day, there are games like the Paradox games, which are Crusader Kings and Euro 3 Universalis, and they're all about history and political science. And they're very sophisticated, simulations. So when a parent complains that their kid sits around and does nothing but play video games all day, not necessarily a bad thing. There is a lot to be learned. Video games might actually be the educational medium of the future because, it's a lot more fun to try to min-max your, fighter to take on this wizard than it is to sit in a classroom and just crunch numbers all day. So that's an application of math. It's not necessarily a real-world application of math, but it's a way to learn the fundamentals that's a lot more fun than a kid than traditional methods. Now, as far as the practice element of it, that's a give or take thing. There's a certain amount of, thought, instantaneous recognition and calculation that you only get by doing it over and over again. But, for a troubled student, you might be able to get them to improve by interesting them in a video game that takes a lot of this particular skill. It's going to be interesting to see because right now the generation that first really came to accept video games as part of a mainstream lifestyle, instead of something nerds did in their parents' basement on a Saturday night, they're coming of age, and it's going to be interesting to see how, as their children get older, they learn to integrate video games in with their children's lives. It going to be a different world in 20 years than it is now, and with different things being accepted. And frankly, it might be a better one. It could go either way, though. So for Journo.com, I'm Jeff Crawford. This was my take on education and video games, and you have a good day.